equations of lines, okay? So, there are three scenarios we can come about. We're going to look at each of those scenarios today. The first is when you're given a slope of m and a y-intercept of b, you use the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We all know how to do that. We're most familiar with that. That's easy. The second one is if we are given a slope of m and a point xy, we use something called the point-slope form. Does anyone remember what the point-slope form looks like? Anyone recall from 2 years ago? I know, it was a long time ago. What point-slope looks like? Okay. If I have point-slope, I have an equation that looks like this. I say y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. So what happens is, if I have a point, I plug it into the x1 and the y1, and then once I plug those numbers in, I can resolve for it to be into slope-intercept form. Okay? I can resolve that. We're going to talk about how to do that today. And then the third scenario we could come to is that you are given 2 points, x1, y1, and x2, y2. And it says, in order to solve something when you're given 2 points, first you have to use the slope formula. What is the slope formula? M equals what? Wait, no, I said what is the slope formula? No. Not the
intercept.
y-intercept formula. What is the slope formula? How do you find slope? Thank you. Yes. Change in y over change in x. So I'm going to use the slope formula first of change in y over change in x. Okay? And then, after I use the slope formula to find the slope, then you use a point slope formula with either point. It doesn't matter which one. I either use x1 and y1 or I use x2 and y2. It doesn't matter. You can do it differently than your neighbor. So then you're going to use the point slope formula after you've discovered what it is. So does this take time? Yes. Okay? It's probably the least favorite way I like to be given things to find equations. So, we come to a graph, this graph right here. It says write an equation of this line. Okay, write an equation of that line. How can I write an equation of that line? What do I need to know? What things do I need to know to write an equation? Two main things I need to know to write an equation of a line. What are they? Listed in this formula right here. A y-intercept and a slope. Do I have a y-intercept of that line right there? Can I look at it and tell what the y-intercept is? What is it? -2. Mallory says -2. It's 0, -2. My y-intercept is -2. So my equation should say y equals mx minus 2. How can I figure out what my slope is on this? How can you figure out what your slope is? Does it go perfectly through the x-axis someplace? Not necessarily. So in order to find what my slope is, what you're going to do is you're going to count until you can get to a perfect place. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, it already has a 1, 2. Let me see. What did I do there? I went too high. So it has 1, 2, 3, and here's a point at 4. So if I draw something from there to there, right? That makes it perfect. So this point is at 1, 2, 3 units up, and 1, 2, 3, 4 units over. So 3 units up, 4 units over means this is my slope. Yes? Okay. So you can count it, or you could pick a point on the graph and subtract them and find the change. It's kind of up to you, whichever one's easier. Okay? That's why I said having graph paper will probably be a good thing tonight on your homework. So my equation of this line is y equals 3/4 x minus 2. Now I have the equation that they're asking for. Clarification on that. Any questions with that? Okay, so you can count it, or you can actually find another point. Okay, I can find another point on the graph, and I can subtract change in y over change in x to find my slope. Now, this says write an equation of a line that passes through the points 5, 4, and has a slope of -3. Okay, so I have what two pieces of information in that sentence? What two pieces of information do I have? Good, a point and a slope. So if I have a point and a slope, what formula am I going to use? Point slope. See how it's named after what's in it? Makes it pretty easy. So my point is 5, 4, and my slope is -3. Point slope says y minus y1 equals my slope times x minus x1. Okay? What goes in here? What goes to y1? 4. Good. 4 goes into y1. What goes into my slope? What is my slope? No? -3. What goes into my x, Jeremiah? Into my x1. 5. Okay? 5. Now, how do I solve this? What do I do from there? Write an equation of a line that passes through that. Yeah? You want to add 3 to both, or you want to add 3 to both sides? Is 3 being, what is 3 doing here? So distribute, good. I need to distribute 3. So I distribute the -3, -3 times x, -3x, and what is -3 times -5? Not negative. Yes, because a negative times a negative is a positive. Now what do I need to do? Is this an equation yet? Am I done? What do I need to do? You guys are so quiet. You can say it loud. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And I'm going to get an equation that says y equals -3x plus 19. -3x plus 19. Okay. So how do we feel about putting it in point slope form and then getting it into y equals mx plus b form? Good there? Okay. Those two are pretty easy. The ones that get a little tricky are kind of what we're going to do next, because we have to think a little bit more. Okay. And so we have to kind of think about what this is asking. It says, write an equation of a line that passes through the point -2, 3 and is A, parallel to the equation y equals -4x plus 1, and B, perpendicular to the equation y equals -4x plus 1. So I'm going to have two separate equations, okay? One that is parallel to this line and passes through that point, and one that is perpendicular to this line and passes through that point. So let's focus on A first. Something that is parallel to y equals -4x plus 1 and passes through -2, 3. Okay? First, what information do I have? So that I can decide if I can go straight into y-intercept form or if I need to put it into point slope form. Do I have a y-intercept? You do? What is it? I have a y-intercept of this particular line, but not of the line I'm coming up with. I have a point, and I technically have a slope. How can I figure out what my slope is? If I have a point, I want to create an equation that passes through the point -2, 3, but is parallel to this. What do I know about it if something is parallel to something? What do I know about it? They have the same slope. So what is the slope of the line I want to create? -4. So now I have a point and I have a slope. So what formula am I using? Point slope formula. And I have y minus 3 equals negative 4 times x minus negative 2. That becomes positive. I distribute. I get y minus 3 equals negative 4x minus 8. I add 3, and my final equation is y equals negative 4x minus 5. There is an equation that goes through the points negative 2, 3, and is parallel to that equation of y equals negative 4x plus 1. Okay, so we have to do a little thinking there. Now, if that one's parallel, how do I find one that is perpendicular? What information do I have, or what information can I use? Okay, the point is still the same. Good. Point is still the same. The point is negative 2, 3. Okay, what else do I know? Thank you. What else do I know? Okay, perpendicular lines are the negative reciprocal. So what is the negative reciprocal of this slope here? 1/4. I flip it and I change the sign. Now I have a point and I have a slope, so I'm going to put it into point slope formula. Good. So once again, y minus 3 equals 1/4 x minus negative 2. That becomes positive. Y minus 3 equals 1/4 x. What is 1/4 times 2? What is 1/4 times 2? What is 1/4 times 2? What? It is 1/2. It is 1/2 because I get 2 over 4, which is 1/2. Now, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. When I do that, I get y equals 1/4 x, and then I get plus 3.5. You can write it in decimal form if you want. So it could say y equals 0.25x plus 3.5. Either way is correct. Okay? Questions on either of those so far? Anything that you need to walk through? Processing. Okay? So we have creating a line off of a picture, creating an equation off of a picture, creating an equation using straight up point slope form, creating equations using point slope form but with perpendicular and parallel lines so that we can find our slope. And then the last one is write an equation of a line that passes through 5, negative 2, and 2, 10. So this time I only have 2 given points. 2 given points. So what is my first step when I have 2 given points? You need to do what first? Find the slope. And the slope would be the change in y over the change in x. So my slope is going to equal, I'm going to name this x1, y1, x2, y2, so I don't get confused. My slope is going to be y2 minus y1, right? Over x2 minus x1. So I get 12 over negative 3, which reduces to what? What is 12 over negative 3? Negative 4. So my slope is negative 4. Okay, that was step 1. What does step 2 say? You have to use what? Point slope formula. Does it matter which point I choose? No. So I'm going to use point slope form. Which point do you guys want to choose? 5, negative 2, or 2, 10? 2, 10 because they're positive, is that why? Okay. So I'm going to say y minus 10 equals negative 4 times x minus 2. Y minus 10 equals negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. I'm adding 10 to both sides. Y equals negative 4 plus 18. There's my equation. Okay? I don't think this is too difficult. I just think it takes time. And there's a lot of little places where you can make a little algebra mistakes, like multiplying a negative times a negative, or you can have double negatives in here. So pay attention to your signs. Okay? That's my advice to you on this, because that's usually where people mess up. They rush through things. Okay. Last thing. Word problem form. You have $30 to spend on downloading songs. Company A charges 79 cents per song and Company B charges 99 cents per song. Write an equation that models this situation. How can I create an equation that models that situation? How can I create an equation? What? Okay, so $30 equals, and I'm going to take what Company A charges, which is 79 cents, times X. We give it a variable because we don't know how many, plus the 99 cents, and we're going to choose just Y because now I have an equation that has X and Y in it. Okay, so now I've created an equation that allows me to have it in standard form. Correct? I have X and Y, and technically I can graph that and solve that from there. But all they asked me to do was create an equation that models this situation. And that's how I would change those words into an equation. You're going to have to start being able to do that. Okay? Any questions on anything that we've gone over? Okay, I'll give you homework.